The Pacific War was one of the most brutal and complex conflicts of World War II. From 1941 to 1945, the Empire of Japan waged a vast war across the Pacific, facing off against the United States, China, Britain, Australia, and other allied forces. This was a war of naval supremacy, island-hopping campaigns, and ferocious battles fought in jungles and oceans. But why did Japan go to war? How did the conflict unfold? And what made it one of the deadliest theaters of World War II? Today, we take a deep, level dive into the history of the Pacific War. The Pacific War didn't begin in 1941. It had roots in Japan's imperial ambitions decades earlier. Since the late 19th century, Japan had sought to expand its influence. Victory in the Russo-Japanese War, 1904 to 1905, solidified its status as a rising power, but Japan lacked key natural resources, oil, rubber, and metals, which made expansion necessary for its survival. In 1931, Japan invaded Manchuria, setting up a puppet state, Manchukuo. Then, in 1937, Japan launched a full-scale war against China, committing atrocities like the Nanjing Massacre. Western powers condemned Japan's aggression, leading to economic sanctions. By 1941, the U.S. had placed an oil embargo on Japan. Facing economic collapse, Japan had two choices: withdraw or go to war. It chose war. On December 7, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, crippling the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Within hours, Japanese forces struck across Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, Malaya, the Philippines, and the Dutch East Indies. Japan's military doctrine, led by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, focused on swift, decisive strikes. In just months, Japan seized a vast empire stretching from Burma to the Solomon Islands. The worst Allied defeat came in the fall of the Philippines 1942, where tens of thousands of American and Filipino troops surrendered, leading to the brutal Bataan Death March. Japan's expansion seemed unstoppable, but the tides of war would soon shift. The turning point came at midway June 1942. The U.S. Navy, breaking Japanese codes, ambushed Japan's fleet, sinking for aircraft carriers. This battle crippled Japan's ability to wage offensive naval warfare. Next came the Guadalcanal Campaign, August 1940 to February 1943. U.S. Marines fought a brutal 6-month struggle against Japanese forces on a key island in the Solomon Chain. The battle showcased Japan's tenacity, refusing to surrender despite starvation and overwhelming odds. But it also revealed flaws in Japan's strategy, its inability to replace lost troops and equipment as quickly as the U.S. The Allies now had momentum. With Japan pushed back, the Allies launched island-hopping, capturing key islands while bypassing heavily fortified ones. Battles at Tarawa 1943, Saipan 1944, and Leyte Gulf 1944 were costly but strategic victories. As the war neared Japan's doorstep, desperation set in. Japan unleashed kamikaze suicide attacks at the Battle of Leyte Gulf and Okinawa. These tactics terrified Allied forces but couldn't stop the inevitable. By mid-1945, the U.S. was firebombing Japanese cities, killing hundreds of thousands. Yet Japan refused to surrender. On August 6, 1945, the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 3 days later, another hit Nagasaki. With over 200,000 deaths, Japan had no choice but to surrender. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's capitulation. The war was over. The Pacific War reshaped global history, leading to the rise of the U.S. as a superpower, the occupation of Japan, and the start of the Cold War. The scars of this war still linger today. The Pacific War was more than just a series of battles. It was a clash of ideologies, strategies, and human resilience. Understanding it is crucial to understanding the world we live in today. If you found this deep dive insightful, subscribe for more expert-level history content.